It's the show the establishment warned you about.
Yes, that's right. This is Dr. Tommy Show. We're back again in the free state of Florida. We're glad you're here today. And we are coming to you live from Tampa, Florida, where we are the home of Echelon Health Concierge Medicine. If you're a patriot out there, come and join us, and you can learn how to have a personalized relationship with your physician and also be in a medical practice where we don't practice medicine according to how the government says you have to. We can actually practice medicine on an individual basis instead of on a global basis or what they call it, population health basis. We have several patients joined recently who are from different parts of the country where that is not the case, where you have an option to have a personalized physician, and so they come to us for that, and we're glad they're doing that, and we're glad you're listening. If you want to listen to the Dr. Tommy Show, go to drtommy.com/podcast, and you can listen on Rumble, watch on Rumble, and you can listen on any of the various different podcasting platforms. In particular, I like using iHeartRadio, but you choose whatever you want to listen to. And also, thank you if you are listening, because this is an independent podcast. This is not a what you typically see as a podcast where they basically take any type of media personality and just recycle the content on a podcast platform and say it's a podcast. So they'll take somebody like some tired comedian like what's her name, the human urinal, what's her name, I can't remember, Chelsea Handler. Yeah, so they'll take some washed up comedian like her and give her a podcast and say, oh, this is a podcast. Or they'll take, some personality off CNN, maybe like Jim Acosta. He probably has a podcast, and they'll say, oh, it's the Jim Acosta show, like it's some kind of new thing. All it is they're just recycling the same crap that's on there, the media that you're already not watching, and putting it in a podcast and thinking you're stupid enough to watch it. Anyway, so we're glad you're here. If you're joining us live, it's an independent, or joining us live or whatever on a replay, it's an independent podcast. And if you are like our podcast, do us a favor and subscribe so you can keep getting the content. But also, if you want to share it with your friends, that's great too. We're on Getter, and I'm also on Truth Social. I'm not on Twitter or Facebook. I am on Instagram, however, Tampa Direct Care, along with Tracy, who is concierge_medicine. So we are on Instagram. We have a lot of different things to share today. We had a thing here in Florida called I think it was a Turning Point USA had their convention here. It was in Tampa. And one of the themes of today's show is the gaslighting of America. And it's kind of funny how the media spins things along with the government to make you believe what they want you to believe. And so one of the things that they did was they had this thing where they had these people down there demonstrating in favor of Governor DeSantis, and they said these were people who were they were supposed to be Governor DeSantis's supporters, and they were neo-Nazis, because as you know, almost all Governor DeSantis supporters are neo-Nazis, And anyway, they had these people dressed up as neo-Nazis, and dutifully enough, the media reported it as such, and they said, oh, these guys were down there, DeSantis supporters, neo-Nazis, and they were saying things about Jews and all these other bad things. And they just dutifully reported it. And it's funny, if you look at these guys, I don't know if you've been watching the news, they have these other fake, quote unquote, conservative organization, or right wing, they call it, organization out there called the Patriot Front. And it looks very similar to these guys. If you're watching, you can see this picture. So this is the guys. These are the neo-Nazis out there supporting DeSantis in front of the convention center for Turning Point USA. And it's funny because if you read this article, they said that these people had these nicely folded flags of the swastikas, like they had just bought them, and they're all dressed up with these matching outfits, and they have on, interestingly enough, they have masks on. And there's some people who are saying that these guys are feds, and they're out there to just to basically do a false flag operation. And it may very well be true that's what they're doing. But anyway, this is something that you see a lot of times in these other countries where they'll do these false flags and say that this is the other party doing this, and they dress up as the other party. Well, here it is coming home to Florida. And this is neo-Nazis outside the Turning Point USA. This is from some website called Orlando Weekly. And it says, the extremist groups arrived after more than 100 protesters marched past a Gaslight Square Park to the convention center to speak out against recent actions by the Supreme Court, especially the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Creative loping Tampa Bay photographer Dave Decker caught photos of neo-Nazis waving swastika flags along with flags that read DeSantis country. This is what the people at Turning Point said. They have nothing to do with Turning Point USA, our event, or our students. See, this is what they try to do. So this is kind of like what they've done with, this is what they did with the Charlotte thing, if you remember back when Trump was president. So they had these protesters protesting over probably statues, I think. That's a big thing when Trump first became president, the racist statues, which, interestingly enough, you hear nothing about racist statues anymore. For like a year, all we could hear about is racist statues that were just terrible. It had to be torn down, and then nothing. Suddenly, there's no more about racist statues. Anyway, that's what they did. They said, okay, here's these racist statues. And so these actual protesters showed up, and some of them were actually bad people, let's say they were neo-Nazis. I don't even remember. Well, what they'll do is they'll say to Donald Trump, do you now condemn the neo-Nazis that are here supporting you? And then it's kind of like the old question, when did you stop beating your wife? You know, by the implication, the question ties you to these people. So anyway, they go to the Turning Point USA guy, Andrew and Colvett, and they say, what's the deal with these Nazis showing up? And he says, well, they have nothing to do with Turning Point, our events, or our students. Our students took the mature route and vacated the space that neo-Nazi flag holders were in. Once that happened, they left. This is exactly what the fake, the Covington kids, when they had the fake hate crime against the Indian who was there, and he was just calmly doing whatever he was doing, and these vicious Catholic high school children surrounding him, and Nick Sandmann was leading them, and they were laughing in this guy's face, and it was all so awful. And the media and every other liberal hack reporter and celebrity you could think of jumped on board. And one of them even said he wanted to punch his face because he was just so mad about it. But anyway, that was a false flag operation too, because he had nothing. If you looked at it, there was nothing to do. That kid had nothing to do with making the Indian guy feel upset. And actually, the Indian guy marched into where they were and started beating on his drum. So anyway, this is just what they do. But this is part of gaslighting, is they make you feel like you're crazy if you believe that what they're saying is not true. And that's what the definition of gaslighting is, or that's how they gaslight you. So that's one example of gaslighting that's taking on right now here in Florida. There's this other thing. So talking about gaslighting. So here's this thing about Biden. Okay, this is from American Greatness. And you may have read this. It said that the Biden's administration now is saying that recession does not mean 2 quarters of negative growth. That has been the definition of recession as long as I can remember. And it says here, this is from American Greatness. It says, Biden regime accused of gaslighting nation with Soviet-level propaganda after it attempts to redefine the recession. The recession is traditionally defined as 2 consecutive quarters of economic decline. The first quarter sank at 1.6%, negative 1.6%. And the Atlanta Fed is projecting another 1.6% decline. And so that's what is going to happen. But the Biden administration is now out saying that no, that's not what recession is. And they have going on the media in reporting that this is not the case, and the media is lapping it up and repeating what they say over and over again, I'm sure. It says, in cable appearances over the weekend, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and White House Council of Economic Advisors Jared Bernstein pounded the regime's new definition. And it says, actually, 2 quarters of negative GDP doesn't necessarily qualify as a recession, Bernstein told CNN. He went on to insist that variables that his committee uses to determine whether in a recession, quote, tend to look pretty good. And then Janet Yellen, she goes, I don't want to emphasize what a recession really is. It's a broad-based contraction in the economy. And even if that second quarter growth number is negative, we're not in a recession now. So they're going on TV now saying, don't believe your lying eyes. We're not going to be in a recession, because they're going to report this number Thursday. Thursday, this number's coming out about whether or not we're in a recession or whether or not there was negative growth, which means a recession. And they don't want to believe it. And so this is a case of the chocolate rations being actually increased as opposed to decreased, as we said they would be. That's exactly what happened in 1984. They would say that chocolate rations were going to be, the chocolate rations were going to be increased in the first quarter of 2022. And then when it came time for the chocolate rations to come out, the actual number was less. So then they go back and they change the number that was supposed to be. And they said, oh, look, now the chocolate rations have increased. They didn't decrease. Actually, they've increased when it was thought they would decrease. They changed the rules as they're going, and they change the facts as they occur. That's how you know you're living in a post-constitutional dystopia. So that's two things of gaslighting that occur. Here's this other thing, gaslighting us about these COVID-19. So I just did this blog on my blog, and I go drtommy.com/blog. Anyway, it's about ivermectin. So I ran across this article that was about ivermectin. It's called the Journal of Antibiotics. It says that the mechanisms of ivermectin, mechanisms of action of ivermectin against SARS-CoV-2, an extensive review. So it has these. It's this article. It's a real journal article, and it has all of these different ways that ivermectin they found, based on their research and reading through different articles about how ivermectin works to prevent COVID-19. Well, that's obviously not allowed. You're not allowed to say that, because COVID-19 is only prevented through vaccination and also Paxlovid. And so that's the only thing you're allowed to say. But the ivermectin, okay, and it turns out, according to this article, it has several different ways in which it treats COVID-19. And I wrote there, I said, let me start off by saying I don't know if it does or not. However, there's a great overview of the possible ways ivermectin does inhibit COVID-19. And it says, according to this article, ivermectin works in different ways that the FDA approved it to do, which is FDA approved ivermectin to work against parasites only. And so then the media dutifully reported that ivermectin's a horse dewormer. And then it will, if you take it, you're stupid. And the only way you should treat COVID-19 is to take what we tell you, which is the vaccines, quote unquote, and then the brand new drugs that we have now, which a lot of them are just repurposed drugs that they've had on the shelf that didn't work for something else. And they're like, well, hell, let's try it on this. And so then they rushed it through and they got the FDA approve it after doing a very short study that showed it didn't really kill anybody. So then they said, well, now it's approved for emergency use. So that's what we have here. And if you look at this taken as a part of the whole of COVID-19, the way that they pounced on drugs like ivermectin and plaquenil, and they before they got out of the barn, they drowned the baby in the bathtub before it even got out, because they didn't want this ever to be out. These drugs that are cheap and potentially effective and used in other countries like India, for instance, they didn't want these drugs to ever have a foothold in the United States because they had an agenda. They had a narrative they want to follow. And the narrative was basically that, this like I wrote here, ivermectin is a horse dewormer. That's their narrative. And anyone who thinks it can treat COVID is stupid. Also, the only things that can treat COVID are the brand new and sometimes brand new repurposed drugs we've made available, like Paxlovid. It just so happens these new drugs are very expensive and have the glimmer of FDA approval, albeit emergency use approval, but who's counting? So anyway, the point of it is that the legacy media and the establishment in the form of the government, the medicine, the WHO, they always have an agenda. And their agenda in the terms of COVID-19 is don't do anything other than what we have told you to do. And especially don't take anything that's not a brand new drug that's been just now put on the market that we can make a bundle of money off of. And that brings me to this new this article that a friend of mine sent. This is pretty interesting. It's a Wall Street Journal. It says the Moderna real estate boom. It says the pharmaceutical companies, executives and employees have spent big on luxury homes since its vaccine became a blockbuster. So the Moderna vaccine is the one approved along with the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine for for treating COVID-19 through vaccination in the United States. They recently approved another one. But anyway, it says, in late 2021, Kathy Angelini, the sales director at St. Regis Residences in Boston, an under construction luxury condominium, was elated to have back-to-back showings after a long sales drought. Things started well when a Pfizer employee agreed on the spot to purchase a 16th floor condo with views of Boston Harbor for $4.85 million, she said. 2 hours later, a Moderna executive honed in on the same unit. When she remarked on the coincidence, Mrs. Angelini said, "He just looked at me completely serious and said, I want the same home, but I need it to be one floor higher than Pfizer." So here's this competition, this contest these guys had. He reserved the option to buy a 17th floor unit for $4.95 million that day. Mrs. Angelini's buyer is just one of a flurry of Moderna employees who have descended upon the Boston area real estate market since the company's blockbuster COVID vaccine helped drive the company to its first profitable year in 2021, more than a decade. So this company, if you remember, or if you don't remember, if you didn't know, had a series of drugs that went to market, and I think it was like 6 in a row that went to market. None of them worked. And then along comes COVID, and then along comes the Operation Warp Speed, and then boom, suddenly they're making millions and millions of dollars or billions of dollars. So here's all these executives and employees just making bank and getting all these fancy residences in Boston. It just says that the company, it says this is what it says. Moderna more than tripled its headcount in the Boston area as it raced to get millions of doses of vaccine out the door. The company, which had approximately 830 employees at the beginning of 2019, added about 470 employees during 2020. The following year, it announced plans to double its production and lab space in Norwood in order to increase COVID production by 50%. By the end of 2021, Moderna had 2,700 employees with a median employee salary of $133,000. Currently, Moderna employs north of 3,200 employees. So this is something that just keeps going on and on about all these different luxury digs that were bought. Eric Wang, $3.9 million. These are all people that work for Moderna. Melissa Moore, $4.9 million. Paola Martini, $2.5 million. 7.3 million, 1.9 million, all these people. And so these things are what was rushed through with this Operation Warp Speed, and it was supposed to prevent COVID, right? Prevent COVID infection. But as you know, Joe Biden is still having COVID now. And so all of these vaccines, I don't know what the import of it was. I honestly can't tell you. And I hope that it's true that the COVID vaccine has prevented maybe some people from getting seriously ill from COVID and dying. But you can't trust the numbers that come out of the United States, if not for any reason other than they have lied to us so much so far that how could you ever trust them if they give you any real numbers? So you're forced to look at numbers outside of the United States, at least for comparison, if not to completely outright reject the numbers that are put out by the United States. And so if you read Alex Berenson on his Substack, he has some data from Dutch data from the Netherlands that shows that possibly in the long term, that not only does the COVID vaccine not help prevent COVID, it actually makes you more likely to get COVID. And so this is stuff that if you open your browser more so than it is and go read alternative sources, and then you can have a comparison. You don't have to read just what they put out in CNN and all that, MSNBC and the New York Times and all that. And I'm not to say that whatever else is out there is absolutely truthful, because obviously it's not necessarily true. But the point is there has to be allowed to be put out there in the marketplace of ideas so that you can decide for yourself. But that's what they don't want you to do. They don't want you to decide for yourself or be in the marketplace of ideas. You're not allowed to think for yourself. So it's what COVID-19 has struck Biden, as we know from last week. And it says he is continuing to improve. This was from a couple days ago. It said that Joe Biden's doctor gave an update. It says his predominant symptom is now a sore throat, is more likely result, blah, blah, blah. He's continuing to take Paxlovid, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so Biden had, I think he had the diagnosis on Thursday. So yeah, Thursday night. Yeah, I think it was so Thursday. Today's Tuesday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. 5 days now. And so far, I have not heard that he is symptom free, nor have I heard that he has a negative test. And you know that if he had had a negative test, they would have announced it by now, because they are very keen to make it seem like whatever he did, which was getting 4 shots and also taking Paxlovid, worked. And it may be that it does work, but I don't. I'm surprised that if it has happened yet, that he's symptom free, that we haven't heard yet. And here's the other thing: when is the other shoe going to drop? Because Joe Biden, as we know, took Paxlovid, right? And so here's what happens in some people who take Paxlovid. Not everybody, but some people who take Paxlovid get rebound COVID. And so if Joe Biden has not cleared COVID yet, so basically what happened with Dr. Fauci is he got sick, quadruple vaxxed, safest person on earth, the second most unlikely person to get COVID on earth besides Joe Biden, Dr. Fauci, the godfather of mask. Anyway, so this guy got COVID. He took Paxlovid. He got better. And then he got then he got COVID again, tested positive again, and got worse. So is that what's going to happen to Joe Biden? And if that does happen to Joe Biden, even though Joe Biden and Fauci are about the same age, Joe Biden physiologically is probably about 15 to 20 years older than Dr. Fauci. So we'll see what happens with him. But so far, we have not heard what's happened with Joe Biden in regards to his COVID ordeal. Oh, this stupid democracy, our democracy hearings, January 6th commission, such a joke. I swear we're living in stupid times, peak stupid. I always think that, how can we become more stupid? And here we are giving air to these people. Look at this. This is Liz Cheney. Look at her. What a face. That sour look. It looks like she's constipated. Looks like an advertisement for Metamucil. Take Metamucil so you don't end up looking like this. Anyway, so this season 2 apparently of Our Democracy, that's what I called it. Our Democracy, how to save our democracy, starring Liz Cheney and her band of January 6th committee members. Anyway, it says Liz Cheney drops hint about potential 2024 presidential run. This person's insane if she thinks she's going to run for president. But they just announced that this committee is going to start over again in September, and so we have that to wait for. And I was very disappointed to see that. Not very disappointed. Not that I really care. I guess more surprised than anything to see that the Wall Street Journal editorial page went on to say that based upon the January 6th committee or commission, whatever the hell they're called, the show trial, based upon this Soviet show trial, they've determined that Donald Trump is unfit to be president again because he did nothing for 180 minutes while this was going on, as they learn now from the January 6th committee. So these guys are such gutless wonders that they are going to use this show trial. This show trial is straight out of Soviet Russia, as other people have said. And it's disgusting to think that purported newspaper, particularly one that's supposed to lean right, like the Wall Street Journal, is going to rely upon this piece of garbage, one party show trial to say that now Donald Trump is no longer fit to be president. At least have the guts to just say it based upon your own feelings. Don't use a show trial to do it. These people are, this is a joke. I mean, it's embarrassing that we're even covering this, and it's embarrassing that it's taking place in Congress. And what's really not necessarily embarrassing but infuriating is that they're using our money to do it. They hire these TV producers to produce this content that sucks. They've had several episodes appear at night. Nobody watches this crap. And then here's Liz Cheney. She announced there's going to be season 2 of the show trials, and it's going to start back up in September. And she said something like, "Oh, we have a lot of new information, so we can't wait to see you." It's like, what are you? Is this MTV? you're a joke. But here she is. Someone asked her if she was going to run for president, and she says she drops a hint about running for president. Could you imagine Liz Cheney running for president? I don't know. I don't even know if Rob Reiner would vote for her. This is more stuff about why we're in a. This is kind of discouraging. Although this is again not surprising. It said this Hunter Biden situation, what's going on with his laptop and his money laundering potentially, and all these different things that are going on. It's being investigated by the FBI. And one of the bad things that's happened recently, I guess since Obama, I guess you'd call it, that I've become aware of it, is this two-layered justice system, this two-tiered justice system, let's call it, where if you're of a certain political persuasion, maybe the Justice Department looks the other way, and if you're other political persuasion, maybe you get raided in the middle of the night while you're sleeping in bed with 25 FBI agents dressed up at your doorstep. And so here, this is from Breitbart. It says, Chuck Grassley, quote, highly credible whistleblower says FBI, DOJ downplay negative Hunter Biden information. It says that this is what Grassley wrote. Allegations provided in my office appear to indicate there was a scheme in place among certain FBI officials to undermine derogatory information connected to Hunter Biden by falsely suggesting it was disinformation. So Hunter Biden's being investigated apparently for being, possibly operating as a foreign agent without registering. That's what they sent Manafort to maximum security prison for. You know that? FARA, Foreign Agents something Act, Registration Act, or whatever it was called. Anyway, that's what they accused Manafort of doing and sent him to prison for. Or was this for taxes? Maybe they did that for, they did it for the other guy, not Manafort. Anyway, somebody tied to Trump maybe that was Flynn. Who the hell knows? They've arrested so many people. Anyway, somebody on Trump's side was arrested for a FARA violation, right? And they were going to go to prison, or they went to prison. And then here's the same thing is going to happen to Hunter, and they're going to look the other way apparently. But this is not surprising at all. And this, like I said, going back to the Obama administration was when this started, because when Benghazi started and when Benghazi happened, you could see that there was going to be nothing go on to any way hold her accountable for any of the things that happened during the Benghazi fiasco. And then the email scandal, where she was using an unsecure computer for her emails. Nothing happened with that. And then at the same time, you have people like Manafort going to prison, put in a maximum security prison, the same prison as Unabomber. They had Roger Stone he was raided in the middle of the night because he lied to Congress. And meanwhile, there's other guys that have lied to Congress and nothing's happened to them on the other side. And so then here we go. Here's the latest one. As we know, Hunter Biden is Joe Biden's son. I've always thought that there was going to be nothing happen to him. And I just find it almost impossible to believe that the swamp, as represented by the FBI, as represented by the Department of Justice, as represented by anybody in the swamp, is going to do a damn thing against Hunter Biden. And here it is. This makes sense. It says, first, it's been alleged the FBI developed information in 2020 about Hunter Biden's criminal, financial, and related activity. It's further alleged that in August 2020, FBI supervisory intelligence analyst Brian Otten opened an assessment which was used by FBI headquarters team to improperly discredit negative Hunter Biden information as disinformation and caused investigative activity to cease. So this is what they do. So if I was implicated by anything like this, I'd go to prison. Most of you out there listening will go to prison. But if you're some connected individual, if you're highly connected, like you're Joe Biden's son, or if you're Hillary Clinton, or if you served, or you're just basically on the right team, then the justice system does not work against you. Just like, and it trickles on down too. If you are, let's say you're Kyle Rittenhouse, and some dudes are trying to hurt you, and one of them is a pedophile child molester, and you happen to blow his ass away when he's trying to hurt you, you're going to be put on trial for murder. And then if you're acquitted, then you're still going to be called a white supremacist when there's no evidence at all that you're a white supremacist. But that's only because of your political persuasion. And the same thing happens if you're on one persuasion, which means you're a non-leftist. And then if you're on the other persuasion, you can burn down a police precinct if you're in Oregon or wherever the hell they burn down the police precinct. So this is what's annoying about our country, and this is what's frustrating, and this is what's causing people, like I said earlier, to move from different parts of the country to Florida. Because they think if they come to Florida, at least, they know the federal government's going to be corrupt, but at least the local government maybe won't be corrupted. And maybe they'll be able to experience some freedom and maybe have some potential equality under the law, even to if they get arrested. Like, for instance, this guy that was in New York, a bodega worker. So he's working in this bodega, right? And then he declines a credit card or the EBT card of this woman who was trying to buy something. And then her boyfriend comes in, he's trying to attack this guy, and he does attack him. And then the bodega worker stabs him in the neck with a kitchen knife and kills him. Stabs in the chest. But they arrest the guy for murder. And it was only after social media pressure and all this other things that now the guy was, the charges were dropped. But that's the kind of things that happen if you live in these hellholes, these Democrat-run cities, these hellholes, where they release people from prison. I was talking about this earlier with a patient. He said he lived in New York before. He lived in New York. He left New York in 2020 when COVID started, about the time COVID started. But for the 5 years preceding that, he lived in New York, and he said it was beautiful. He never worried about being on the subway. He never worried about any safety at all. He loved living in New York. He went back to his home state, and then he said recently he's visited New York now since de Blasio's been in charge. And he says it's like a zombie land, and it's dangerous. And he said he won't go back for the foreseeable future. And this is what happens. You have these people that are causing crime or criminals, like the guy who attacked Lee Zeldin recently. The guy tries to kill Lee Zeldin. I mean, honestly, if the guy had a good shot, he could have hit Lee Zeldin in the neck with that spike, bare knuckle spike thing, and lacerated his carotid. It doesn't take that much to. If you hit somebody in the right place in the neck, they could bleed to death. It doesn't take that much. And the guy was released on his own recognizance that day because they have no cash bail there in New York, this liberal hellhole, like I said. And so this guy was released on his own recognizance. Lee Zeldin was up there. He was doing running for governor against Kathy Hochul. And Kathy Hochul, before that, on her social media, she's talking about using social media now to see if people should be allowed to have gun permits. And you're going to have to use your social media. Well, look at her social media. Should she be allowed to have a gun permit? You should see this fear she was stoking in her followers by saying Lee Zeldin was doing this and he was going to do that, and we have to do this and that. Just the amount of vitriol in her social media towards a guy who is a political opponent. I mean, this guy's not a terrorist. This guy didn't try to attack her family. He is her political opponent. But if you read her social media, he was basically Hitler's son. And so it doesn't take much to take someone who's off kilter, like this guy apparently was. And this guy was apparently also drunk. So then he attacks Lee Zeldin. He tries to hit him with this improvised knife on knuckles, basically. Lee Zeldin smartly grabbed his arm, and then other people jumped on to save him. And then finally, this guy was taken to jail, released the same day. And then there was a bunch of social media outcry, mostly social media outcry, because the media doesn't care. The media didn't report anything about it being ridiculous about this guy being released. And then they were saying, well, some people were saying, well, damn, this was a federal crime, wasn't it? And then the FBI, speaking to the FBI, they got shamed into going and arresting this guy. So they're like, they're sitting around, they're sitting there doing whatever they're doing. They're trying to find their latest. non-leftists to persecute, and then they're looking to see if Roger Stone has done any double parking any recently, so they can go rearrest him. Anyway, so then it comes on the TV or that comes across social media like, well, this Lee Zeldin was attacked and it's a federal crime, and they're sitting there like, damn, we better go arrest this guy. So then they arrested him, but they arrested him after, like I said, there was outcry. Anyway, this is all just to say that it's not right. It's not right to have two layers of justice. It's not right to have two separate tiers, and there should be equality under the law. There isn't. This is more bullcrap about the law. This is WFLA News, iHeartRadio. So in Florida, the Marjorie Stoneman High School murderer, Nicholas Cruz. All right, here's how this story starts off. Here we go. Gun store owner and medical examiner testify in sentencing of Nicholas Cruz. This is from iHeartRadio or WFLA News. The owner of a gun store that sold Nicholas Cruz the AR-15 style rifle he used in the 2018 Marjorie Stoneman High School attack remembers the brief conversation he had with Cruz when he picked up the weapon. Anyway, they said that he was going to go use it to shoot with his friends on the weekend. But my question is this. It says the jury is being asked to decide whether Cruz should face life in prison or the death penalty for his guilty pleas on 17 counts of first-degree murder and 17 counts on attempted murder. We are now in week 2 of deliberation. Now, when the Constitution was written, they said you should have a speedy trial. Is this what a damn speedy trial is? This guy has been convicted, right? He pled guilty. He pled guilty for 17 counts of first-degree murder. And now we're in the penalty phase. What are we discussing? I mean, why are they interviewing the gun store owner to determine whether or not they should sentence Cruz to the death penalty for killing 17 people? What is the point? What is the point of asking the gun store owner anything? I mean, what is the point of how short should that penalty phase be? Granted, I'm no lawyer, but what is there to discuss? He pleads guilty to murdering 17 people. What is there to discuss? Unless he had a plea bargain earlier that said, look, I'm going to plead guilty and then I'm going to get life. That's different. That's not what happened. He pled guilty. Now this is a penalty phase. Now we're in week 2 of deliberations to find out what his punishment should be. This is what the hell is another thing is wrong with our justice system. I mean, there was a time and day where if you did something bad, you had swift justice. Now we're in the time of day where if you do something bad, if you get justice, it may come very, very far in the future. If you murder somebody like this in cold blood and 17 counts of first-degree murder, let's say they give him the death penalty. Okay, let's say he gets the death penalty for this. How long till he will actually get the death penalty? Because of automatic appeals and all the other stuff. This is like stimulus. The earlier thing we were talking about was stimulus for the pharmaceutical companies, the COVID-19 vaccines and the Paxlovid and all that. It was stimulus for the pharmaceutical companies, so they can go buy mansions in Boston. This is stimulus. This type of thing is stimulus for the lawyer community. So that they can have something to do, I guess. Because what is the point of deliberating very, very, very long at all if this guy should have life in prison or the death penalty? If you have a death penalty, this is an open and shut case as there is. It'd be one thing if you say, we don't have a death penalty, what are we going to do? All right, then you got to figure out, put him in jail, I guess, right? Put him in prison. But they're deliberating whether or not to give him the death penalty or not. It's terrible for those poor people that were killed, those poor children. Jesus, whatever. All right. Okay. And this is something that's interesting. This was video released of a Russian robot that was playing chess with this child. If you saw this. This is from the Blaze. This comes on the heels of the Google AI bot that the programmer said that it was a sentient because it had feelings. And then I just recently read that Google fired this guy. So the guy was, he's like a whistleblower. He's saying, look, this Google bot we've been working on, this Google bot's basically an 8-year-old kid that likes physics. And I've been talking to this Google bot, and I know a human when I talk to it, and we created a human. And so they said, look, this guy's been suspended. It's not true. Google bot's not human. It doesn't have feelings. And, so, and then they eventually fired this guy. I don't know why they fired him. The guy said that the Google bot should have a lawyer, and I think he hired a lawyer for this Google bot, which, as far as I know, is a program. So anyway, whatever. It also follows on the heels of Hal, who, many of you are familiar with, Space Odyssey, killed a whole space crew, except one person, Dave, who survived. And Hal was pissed off because they were going to turn him off because Hal was basically screwing up a little bit. He made a miscalculation, and Dave and one of the other crew members decided to turn him off. And Hal proceeded to kill the whole crew, the onboard robot. Anyway, so here we are. Legacy of Hal. It says, video of Russian chess bot breaking boy's finger. It says, there has been no shortage of science fiction that has warned us humans that robots would eventually launch a rebellion against us. However, how many of us speculated the robot uprising may have started with a chess tournament involving a 7-year-old boy in Russia? On July 19th, a 7-year-old boy was taking on a Russian chess bot during the Moscow Open Tournament. The boy, only identified as Christopher, is one of the 30 best under 9-year-old players in Moscow. The boy, a competitor in the Moscow Chess Federation's Youth League, had a piece taken by the robot. The child rushed to make his next move. Video shows the large mechanical arm playing 3 simultaneously matches against 3 different opponents. The chess-playing robot arm appears to grab the boy's finger. Several adults attempt to free the boy from the clutches of the robot, but it was too late. The robot broke the kid's finger. And this is the president of the Moscow Chess Federation, Sergei Lazarov. The robot broke the child's finger. This is, of course, bad. The robot was rented by us, but has been exhibited many times for a long time with specialists. Apparently, the operators overlooked it. The boy made a move, and after that, we need to give time for the robot to answer. But the boy hurried. The robot grabbed him. We have nothing to do with the robot. So basically, this guy's defending the robot, saying, hey, look, the robot made a move, and the kid was going a little too fast, so the robot broke his finger. Anyway, it looks like the kid was able to get a cast and play the next day with the help of other people. But this is just something you think about whenever you hear about, we're going to get computers implanted in our brains, and it's going to be so great. And all you people out there who have, these appliances that are connected to the internet and are smart appliances or refrigerators and all that, and maybe the people out there who have those cars that drive themselves, something to think about. That's it for today. I think if you're interested in coming in to us, see us, like I said, come and see us. We'll have a nice sit down, and we will we'll talk to you about liberty-oriented medical care. And basically what we do is personalized medical care here. We're in Tampa. We're just north of Bears Avenue if you're in the area. And you can rest assured that you will have as much time as you want to discuss your issues. But the most thing we do is that we just cut out all the BS that you see in other practices. If you call us, we'll call you back. And if you need to be seen, we'll see at the same time. And it's just nothing more. It's nothing more complicated than what it was like when your parents probably, or maybe if you are old enough, were growing up, and you had a family doctor who you could get with when you needed to, and who would listen to you, and was not so much concerned about insurance and all that other bureaucracy and bullcrap. And also, there were no telephone trees back then, so we don't have that either. So anyway, that's it for today. Join us on drtommy.com/podcast. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, if you're listening, share it, and we will appreciate that. Until next time, bye-bye.